If you suffer with overstimulated symptoms such as anxiety, insomnia, seizure disorders, muscle tension, or if you have a child that has ADD, inattentiveness, or sensory processing issues, you're going to want to watch this video and understand how GAD gene mutations may be a big factor that's causing these chronic health issues. So what we're going to be talking about is GAD gene mutations and how these can be a big piece of the puzzle that is causing some of the chronic health issues that people suffer with all the time and are still looking for answers. So what are GAD gene mutations? So GAD stands for glutamic acid decarboxylase, and this is an enzyme, and it's responsible for converting an excitatory chemical known as glutamate into a calming chemical known as GABA. We'll talk about that here in a second. But what are some of the symptoms that we see people that suffer with on a constant basis that have these GAD gene mutations and really don't understand that there could be a strong genetic component? Because here's the thing, is people read or been told that maybe other genetic components like MTHFR maybe is kind of the answer because some of the symptoms kind of overlap and they're doing things like taking out the folate and not getting any results, or worse yet, feeling worse, okay? So what are some of the symptoms that people experience when they have GAD gene involvement or GAD gene mutations? These are things like anxiety, depression, insomnia, especially the inability to fall asleep, where you just kind of lay there with that kind of wired and tired feeling and you can't shut your mind off at night, and you're thinking about everything that you did that day, you're thinking about everything you have to do tomorrow, you just kind of have that like brain that just will not kind of shut down so that you can calm your body to sleep. People with GAD gene mutations also can have seizures and migraines, increased blood pressure, OCD tendencies is a big factor with people that have increased glutamate because of these GAD gene variants. You can see brain fog, muscle tension, chronic constipation because of a slowed bowel motility because of the increased glutamate production. And then in kids, we see issues such as being diagnosed with ADD or inattentiveness, where they're kind of sitting in the back of the class and they have, all these different thought processes going through their head where they can't finish any task because it's like the next thing after next thing they're thinking about, and they're just really not focused on things. We can see kids with sensory processing issues, okay, or any type of sensory issues. It can be kind of tactile sensory issues. And we can see kids that have stimming tendencies as well because of the increased glutamate. So if you have any of these chronic health issues, you're going to want to look at genetics or genetic reporting to see if you had weakness or mutations in these GAD genes, all right? So let's talk about GAD and this whole glutamate to GABA story and how this works and how it causes these chronic health issues. So glutamate is the most abundant chemical in the brain, and it's kind of a necessary evil because you need it. It's what gives us motivation, it gives us focus. It is a chemical that is highly needed. And it's kind of weird how our body was designed, because what happens is you take a very excitatory chemical like glutamate, and then through an enzyme, this GAD gene, you convert and make something called GABA. And now maybe you've heard of GABA, because a lot of times people that have these chronic health issues and been suffering with these issues have maybe tried GABA or taken GABA. And maybe it's worked for you, maybe it works short term, maybe it made you worse. And I got another video that talks about people that take GABA and it makes them worse and why that happens. But back to this glutamate to GABA story. Like I said, glutamate is the most abundant chemical in the brain, all right? And you need glutamate to make that calming chemical GABA that kind of dampens these health concerns. So in a normal or perfect world, if you've got no genetic mutations, we're talking about genetics, we're talking about mom and dad both pass down a particular copy of a gene to you. And we're talking about this GAD gene. And so if both parents pass down a normal gene, we expect that there should be about a 60 to 40% balance between glutamate and GABA. I mean, we got about 60% glutamate and about 40% GABA. That's normal. As the day goes on, your body needs to relax, you need to shut your mind off, glutamate levels decrease a smidgen, GABA increases, body calms down, brain calms down, symptoms dampen, you fall asleep. That's in a perfect world. All right. But what happens if you have genetic weakness or genetic mutations? And if you don't know what mutations or SNPs or variants are, there's other videos you can learn about that. But how this works is mom and dad both pass down genes to you, and if one parent passed down a normal copy and the other parent passed down a mutated copy, or what we call a SNP or a variant, okay, what that means is you get about 25% less function of that protein or 25% less function of that enzyme to work properly, all right? And when that happens, if you got one mutation or one SNP, now your glutamate to GABA balance is at 70 to 30, all right? So you got more glutamate and less GABA, hence you start noticing that these symptoms are there, okay? And if you have one mutation, maybe it's something where these symptoms kind of come and go, they're maybe situational induced, maybe they're not every single day, but you definitely notice that there are some issues with these health concerns. Now, if you've got two variants, meaning that both parents pass down the mutation, meaning mom and dad both pass down mutated copies, and we've got two mutations or two SNPs, now what happens is we have about a 50% or more decrease in that function of that enzyme, and now what that means is we've got about an 80 to 20% balance between glutamate and GABA. So we got 80% glutamate, 20% GABA, and when you have that, these symptoms are chronic. These are the people that have anxiety all the time. These are the people who can never fall asleep and shut their brain off. These are the people that have chronic muscle tension. These are the people that have chronic migraine aspects. These are the kids that are diagnosed with ADD or have sensory issues. When you have two mutations and you've got this 80 to 20 balance, you've got more of an excitatory chemical, less of a calming chemical, and these symptoms present themselves all the time. So what happens is, if you've got mutations and you've got this 70 to 30 or 80 to 20 balance, eventually the percent of glutamate, okay, stays high, and what that does is it starts overwhelming our brain and eventually kind of wears or burns it out, and now we go to the situation where now we have both anxiety and depression, all right? The glutamate is creating the anxiety aspect because of the higher excitatory chemicals, but over time it burns it out, and now we kind of have that bottoming out effect where the brain's just tired, and that's where we start seeing the depression and the brain fog as well, which are typically understimulated based symptoms that kind of mix into this as well just because of the burnout, all right? So if you've got any of these chronic health issues, you're gonna wanna look to see if you've got these GAD gene mutations. And if you do, then there's things you can do about it from a dietary side of things, and there's things you can do from a support standpoint to further assist where you're genetically weak to clear that glutamate into GABA at a faster rate. And when you do that, these symptoms become more manageable and more tolerable. So I hope you learned something. And if you suffer these chronic health issues, look to see if you have those GABA gene variants.